McClellan from across the table with Christopher McClellan, also known as the angry guy that is still learning. Gentlemen, how are you doing on this second week of this beautiful new year?
You know, I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
I'm doing well. Um, we in day 12 of the year now. And I'm wondering how Chris is doing with being angry. He said this is 24, he's gonna stop being angry. So I'm just wondering how things are going.
I love it.
Ah, I'm still angry.
Is you a work in progress?
Yeah, I'm a work in progress. I'm
There we
still
go.
angry.
Hey man, accountability partners show up. I love it.
Hey, that's what we do.
I appreciate it, but yeah, I'm still pissed off.
Well, the year started out good for me. We're gonna see what it do Sunday, but my year is going great so
I love it. I love it. I think Mr. Available Man got something going on, so we'll come back to him. So just to kind of clear the air, the reason why his week started off great is because the Michigan Wolverines won the college football national championship. So congratulations to all Michigan Wolverine fans out there. And he is looking forward to Detroit winning this weekend as well. So, we'll see what that looks like. Son of Timothy, how are you doing this week, brother?
Man, I'm doing well. I can't complain. Life is a continuous learning journey, and I'm loving learning every step of the way.
I love it. I love it. Mr. New York himself. That brother's New York out, man. I'm trying to tell y'all. Don't mistake where he's from. Mr. New York Knicks over there. Got the New York Giants in the background. I mean, come on, son. You know how it is. All right, listen, I want to make sure.
I mean,
Yeah. I just want to make sure that that we acknowledge everybody who joins us because again, listen, we greatly appreciate you guys. We greatly appreciate seeing you guys every week, and we do not want to exclude anyone. So good to see you as always, Michelle Ray, Adrian Walter. Good to see you, Crystal Everett. Good to see you, Keys to Key Realty. Good to see you, Miss Bernadette Simmons, Cassandra McKenzie. Good to see you, Miss Verley McCoy, aka Queen V. She got a nickname too, y'all. Good to see you. Christian Barrow, good to see you, brother. And welcome to the show. Listen, if this is your first time joining us, and if you're on YouTube, I want to make sure I acknowledge you as well. So just look in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Look at the icon that's the YouTube icon. Put your cursor on top of that. Click the fly out that says subscribe so that you can catch every time that we go live. Also, if you're on any other streaming devices, Facebook, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're on Twitter, or whether you're, I'm sorry, not Twitter anymore, whether you're on the platform formerly known as Twitter, X, whether you're on Instagram, again, just go ahead and get in the chats and let us know that you're here so that we can acknowledge you by name. Good to see you, Miss Teresa Austin, so that we can acknowledge you by name because, again, we do not take it lightly. All right, let's dive into this beautiful conversation. In a world where diversity paints the canvas of our lives, have you ever wondered how this multitude of colors can create a masterpiece of unity and understanding? Welcome to a journey that transcends borders and bridges hearts. This isn't just another story, it's an explanation, an awakening to the power of inclusivity and the beauty it brings to our world. Join us as we dive into inspiring narratives, engage in thought provoking conversations, and discover how embracing our differences can become our greatest strengths. This is more than a call to action, it's a call to unity. From the bustling streets of cosmopolitan cities to the serene simplicity of rural landscapes, we can uncover stories of hope, resilience, and the unifying power of humanity. In every corner of the globe, people are finding ways to connect, to understand, and to love. Together, we'll explore how diversity isn't just about tolerating differences, but about celebrating them. It's not just about coexisting, but about thriving together. Get ready to be inspired, to challenge your perspectives, and to be a part of a movement that's reshaping the world. This is Harmony in Diversity, unlocking the power of inclusivity. So join us and be a part of this transformative journey. Subscribe, share, and let's build a world where diversity is our strength. Together, we can unlock the power of inclusivity. So I want to let everybody know real quick that when it comes down to everybody on this platform, I want everybody to understand this, right? The reason why we call this platform the Empowering Perspective platform is because we are subject matter experts of our own thoughts. Right. So that being said, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and that, and because of that nature, we listen to everybody's opinion. And if we can hear what someone else is thinking other than ourselves, then we can get closer to what I tend to call the truth. So I would like to start off this conversation with a question. Gentlemen, what do you believe are the most significant challenges and opportunities we face in embracing and celebrating our diverse backgrounds? This ought to be good.
I'm gonna jump out there. I would say for me, we have to learn how to accept, and I know my brothers may or may not agree with this, but how to accept uh prejudices. And I'm gonna jump right on that one because I think when you live in a diverse society where there are multicultural differences, multi-religious differences, there are preconceived notions based upon information and based upon individual experiences with each other that creates, and I think there's a difference when we talk about a racism and a prejudice, right? All of us have it. We all think of something, whether it's a good generalization, whether it's a bad, but there's some things that we just have to accept that are how people view other people. I can't force everybody to accept me and my beliefs or whatever the case may be, but doesn't mean that I have to allow them to mistreat me. So I think sometimes people don't know how to separate the two. They think a preconceived idea or notion of a person is automatic disrespect. As long as you don't mistreat me based upon what you think about me, I'm good because I'm going to return that same level of respect to you as a human being. Um, that's just my take on it. I think we all have a prejudice when we think about a certain group or another.
I'll piggyback off of that, but I'll tweak it a little bit. Um, I think one of the biggest challenges is being treated like our stereotypes. That's really what it is. Like the images that are portrayed on mainstream media and social media, and the reason why I'm saying that is because that's what everybody is looking at. The way that our image is portrayed is how they see us in real life because that's all they see. And you got, I guess, since everybody does have a specific stereotype or a specific judgment when they look at a person, that's the part of the game that we have to accept. We got to accept the fact that our image is how people are going to look at us until we show them different. That would be where I would start.
I'm going to start with, I'm trying to use the right words, like like when you don't really understand your culture or like where you come from, right? So you don't really kind of understand your background or where you come from, then I think sometimes, you may get a misunderstanding about exactly what it means to be whatever background or that you are, right? So um I don't know, man. It's like that's kind of where I'm stuck at right now. I was still chewing on the thought a little bit, but I know Rolling gonna come in and clean it up. So um, that's why I want to jump in there first, because I'd rather end with that with Roland than me. So, like I said, yeah, man, I just think, I think, if you don't really understand your background and stuff like this or where you come from, regardless of why you don't understand, if you don't understand it, then you can start having the misunderstandings about like really, even identifying who you are as a person, so that's where I want to start and end with right there.
And I don't know how you knew I was going there, but that's exactly where I was going, because I think that one of the challenges is we don't necessarily have a true understanding of who we are as a people. So it's hard because you gravitate towards what you do know, and you do know that some people are from the South, some people are from the North, and uh, grown under these other customs and these other likenesses. So when people say, well, what are your people like, and what is your character, and what is your everything that I have had to come from someone else if I don't have a knowledge of where we actually started and not where we continued per se. So I think that's one of the challenges, not uh, having a reference point to back and say, man, that's where we start, you know.
Yeah, that
Not
was the word, reference point. Yeah. I like that. Because I mean, like, to be honest, there was something that I kind of struggled with, growing up until I really went through my journey and to really figure out what my purpose was, because I was like, okay, well, like for on my side of the family, on both of my parents, I never knew my grandparents on my mom's side, and I only knew one biological parent on my father's side. And then my uncles, they were off doing what they were doing. My cousins were off doing what they were doing. So like I said before, I didn't have the wolf pack. I didn't have the Unk Brigade like Coach did. So there wasn't men pouring into me as I was growing up and as I was developing in my teenage years and in my 20s and stuff like that. So I didn't have a reference. I had a reference point from my father, but that was really it. So I didn't really have a reference point to kind of like where we really came from, like grandparents, different things like that, going to family reunions. Like I don't have those things. So when people talk about how, certain people are, what black people are this and different, like I don't have those reference points. Like I can't relate to those things. You know what I mean? I can't relate to like I said, family reunions and going over to the grandparents off different sides, and like I don't have those memories. I can't relate to those things. So it's trying to figure out going forward is like, well, where did I come from? What's my purpose in life? I had to kind of figure everything out as I went, throughout the process, and good, bad, or indifferent. Some of that wasn't easy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, but
Yeah, all of these are great responses. We got prejudices, stereotypes, lack of cultural awareness, a lack of cultural awareness, and then you came back with a reference point. And Roland, I think I can sum yours up, but just by simply saying that we didn't have an identity, we didn't know our identity. Um, I'm agreeing with all of that. I don't see anything that I would need to add to it because identity was exactly where I was going to go with this question. But this question is also a two-part question that made reference to the challenges, but then it also talked about opportunities. So, given your points of view, what opportunities would you actually identify within the scope of each one? What opportunities exist in prejudices? How can one exploit that? What opportunities exist in stereotypes, a lack of cultural awareness, or just lack of identity? Where would we find opportunities in those spaces?
I think exposure. When you expose yourself to various cultures, like I love how Unc is with his wife's community and such. How like when I went to Germany, I was engulfed in the community. When I went to Korea, in the community, Kuwait and Iraq, same thing. Where you can learn about other people because you realize that you have some uh, preconceived notions about how people are because you see it on TV, because you hear about it from someone else. Like when I was a little kid, I thought all Ethiopians walked around with big old bellies and had flies around their mouth and stuff because of the TV commercial talking about help feed them for 50 cents. That's what we think. And well, what I thought. And those are negative stereotypes that are pushed. Whereas if you engulf yourself in the cultures, you'll see that, man, we all have some beautiful ideas, some beautiful people, some just beautiful experience that if we were to get rid of the preconceived notions and learn the people, then we'll see that there's value in the people.
Agreed.
I agree. Can I ask a question really to more directed to what Roland just said because of my perspective of stereotypes. Do you believe that after learning the people and having a personal experience with the people that it just creates a new generalization or new stereotype or new understand like that the way that I view these people might have changed, but that's just my new viewpoint of those people.
I think it expands it because there are people who, like, if a lot of unmelanated people will see, like when I was up in the middle of Michigan and you don't have a lot of us's around, I've had like unmelanated young lady come up to me and say, show me how you guys walk. And I'm thinking she talking about a soldier, and she talking about like you doing a little diddy bop. I'm like, but she hadn't experienced us. So she thought all of us had to walk around like that, grabbing our, junk and all this other stuff because she watched BET. And when she's experiencing a person in real life, you're like, man, everybody's not like that. So I think that's the experience for everybody. When they experience individuals and cultures and see that, man, I can't put everybody in the box. And that's what we do sometimes. We try to put everybody in the box. Like come down to Texas, I thought everybody had big belt buckles and cowboy hats. And if you watch TV, every time somebody from Texas talk, they sound like they going to a hoedown or something like that.
I mean, he ain't wrong.
Right. Nah, it depends on where you at in Texas, but yeah, and I agree. And I think for me, when I talk about accepting that because there are some stereotypes that depending on where you're from are true, right? But I think what it does, it teaches us a little bit of character building, or give us the opportunity for character building. Because at the end of the day, I have to realize, as long as I live in America, no matter how or what I feel about X, Y, or Z, I have to live among them. And so I'm not going to like everyone that I'm around, but it doesn't mean that I don't have to like my neighbor. We may not get along, but I live next to them. How do we coexist? And so that becomes a personal challenge for me of how do I exist in a space of people that I may not necessarily like how they operate, how they move, but I can understand that that's who they are, regardless of how I feel about it. And I think sometimes we feel like we have to start to like a thing in order to treat somebody right. Um, you don't. Even if I do walk with the Diddy Bop, it don't mean I'm going to break into your house, right? So you don't have to like my bop, but you don't have to treat me like a criminal because I bop. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I stand when it comes to the stereotypes. Think what you want to think, but there's a part of a swag that we all have, and the melanated community in America, but it doesn't mean that we're all going to act like what you've seen on TV or what you may have experienced one time out at Walmart. That's that specific person or that specific community. That's not every person you meet. So I think living in these differences gives us an opportunity to build our character and learn how to treat people regardless of our feelings or preconceived notions.
Gotcha.
I would say it gives us the opportunity to figure out what we are, so that way we can all go on that journey that Unc went on. That's a big opportunity in itself.
You said what we are or where we are?
Both.
Okay.
Where we are as people, where I am as self, where I got this from, and let's see what I can do to build on top of that, or get rid of some of the toxic stuff that I happen to have within me because of where I came from. You understand what I'm saying? It gives us a way to figure that out, and then once we figure that out, we can go out into the world and figure out everything else.
Well, first of all, I want to start by adjusting my words. So when we said lack of culture, I just want to change it. I want to feel like that's a different word. I just want to use, man, we ain't got no culture. So I'm gonna say no culture instead of lack of culture. All right. So in what
Correction, we do have a culture. We have the culture that was given to us, and not the culture that we supposed to have.
I got you. And to add to what Chris just said, if we go back to like my talking point when I've talked about lack of culture or no culture, right? I wrote down a couple of little things. I think what happens is the opportunities that you can have from having a lack of culture is you have the opportunity to create your own culture, right? So going forward, like I talked about before, I didn't have these men to input into me. So what I had to do, I had to go out and seek men. I had to seek, Chris and Twami and Roland and Coach. I had to seek men to become part of my wolf pack and learn from them. NCOs in the military, my older cousins, other friends, and different things like that. That's what I had to do. So I think when you have a lack of culture, I think that allows you to go out there and recreate your own. And because you don't have a reference point, it could be bad. But like I said, right now we're talking about the opportunities. And I think it's a great opportunity. It was a great opportunity for me, what I mean, to learn more about myself and become the person that I am today.
I love it. So as I'm looking at your responses, um, Uncle Junior ended off with an opportunity to learn about myself. Chris said, figure out what and where we are. Tawami talked about character building, and Roland talked about what I tend to call total immersion. And I like it. I like all of it. And I'll start with Chris and Uncle Junior because I agree wholeheartedly. The the issue is if I don't know who I am and I go and start interconnecting with other cultures and things of that nature, I would tend to take on a false identity because we are wired for connection. People just want to belong to something. You see it all the time. And you would tie yourself to something else, and then that becomes your identity. You see it every day. You go and ask a person, like, they give you the name, right? But then you ask them, like, what do they do? And the first thing they start off is with their job. Oh, I'm sorry. If you ask, so tell me about you, the first thing they start off is their job description, right? Because that's what they've associated themselves with. So we got to be careful, right? That's why I like where you guys started with. I need to go on this journey so that I can learn more about who I am, where I came from, right? Part of that might be, just studying your family tree, studying your family history, or whatever that looks like. For me, it involves studying these books behind me because I needed to understand who I was created to be, right? That to me was more important than just understanding my skin color and where it came from. But I did not exclude that as part of that journey. So I needed to understand all of these things. The challenge now is that we have a tendency to think that mind is supreme. It is not. Let me start off by saying that who you are, and where you came from is not supreme over anybody else. That's the thing that we need to understand. We are learning so that we can have a better understanding of who we are, so that we can do the things from the source of our being, not so that we can judge people and ridicule and all this other great stuff from the source of who we don't think they measure up to. That's the thing that we have to understand. That goes to the point of the character building that Tawami talked about, right? I like the fact that you guys went there because it is my responsibility to develop my own character. It's not anybody else's responsibility. So what we do is we play the blame game a lot when it comes to other people, other cultures, things of that nature. And you'll hear it so many times, like the man is holding you down. The man is holding you down. The only man that's holding you down is the man that you see when you look in the mirror. So we got to be consciously aware of that so that we can understand. Now, I got it. There are some nuances that we can discuss to where there are some things in the system to where it does not give everybody fair opportunities. I'm with you. However, that's not what we're discussing now, because if I don't do the work that I need to do within myself, there's no need to talk about this stuff up here, because this stuff up here is going to affect you 10 times worse unless I do the work within me. When I do the work within me, now I can talk about these things up here, because not only have I done the work, not only have I learned, but I can also articulate these things better and how it affects my community. That's why I like the concept of total immersion. Like Roland, when I went to Korea, the best thing I did is I went to a remote part of Korea where nobody spoke English. And I'm telling you, when it's time for when I went out to eat, and I had to order by pointing at pictures. I didn't know what I was ordering. I like, I want that. That looks good. And I ate it. Sometimes I didn't. But you know what? It forced me to learn how to speak their language. The worst thing we can do as Americans is get mad at somebody else on their own territory, thinking that they should have learned English already. That doesn't make sense. That makes absolutely no sense. That's like me coming to your house and saying, I'm getting mad at you because you got your toilet paper turned upside down. It's your house. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be aware. There's a lot of arrogance that we have to subdue, right? That goes back to the prejudices and the stereotypes and things of that nature. We're extremely arrogant about who we are, and we judge somebody because they're not as tall as we are. Their complexion isn't like us. They don't go to the bathroom like us. They don't do whatever. Like, so we got to be careful. We should be on a constant journey of self learning and in the midst of constant humility doing that piece, right? Because there's some things that I can learn about myself from other people. I look like Roland. You look like you was about to unmute your mic, man.
Oh no, I was just scrolling because I'm reading. Because
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All right, appreciate you guys, man. Awesome, awesome responses. Let's kind of grab some of the things that we're saying in the chat. Listen, you guys, I'm seeing you. You putting up some good stuff now. I can't grab everything, but I'm gonna grab a few things. So just bring something to the stage. I don't even know where to start at. Just pick somebody, just bring it up. All right, brother Christian Barrett, as always, good to see you, man. He said, breaking toxic habits that are taught to us growing up. Oh my goodness, this is huge. Listen, I have not met a parent ever, to include this guy, that knew what they were doing when they became parents. Like if they got multiple kids, they got better as time went on, right? So the third or the fourth child got the best version of your parenting skills. But here's the thing, times had already changed by then. So not only did times change, technology changed. Like I'm telling you, like my mother, if I had an iPhone, I mean, I would be, you know how to say, I would be on wheels because, we listen, y'all know what we did with those long cord telephones, hanging around the corner, talking all, talking all smooth and whatnot. Imagine if you had a cell phone. So that's the thing. Like we got to realize, as parents, we didn't know what we were doing, right? And I think I'm okay by saying the parents today, they're still trying to figure it out. So one of the things that we need to understand is that we're not complete in the midst of trying to raise this mini person, right? And the only thing we're doing is sometimes we're passing along a lot of generational traumas to them, a lot of cultural traumas to them, a lot of past hurts from relationships and things of that nature. So that's why I so like this. Thanks, Christian, for bringing that to the stage. All right, who's next? We must learn how to change. We may not want to, but we must. Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the other part. It's not even, I agree, we may not want to. It hurts. It's painful. It is one of the most painful things you're going to go through. And here's the deal. You need to hold on for the ride because if you quit, it's going to like recycle and you're going to start all over. Go ahead, Ro.
Yeah, to combine both of those statements, everything that was good for you back then ain't good for your kids, ain't good for your grandkids. Like I used to make that statement when I used to have to whoop my kids or whatever. If it was good for me, it's good for them. It may not be. You was getting the brakes beat off you with a wooden spoon and a water hose, and you think that's how your kids gonna get better. It didn't really help you. It just made you sit down somewhere. So I think sometimes you have to learn from those things instead of trying to push those things on because you don't want to do things a better way.
I can I piggyback off that? Because I think there's a yes and a maybe, right? And why I say maybe because there's some things that my parents did that I didn't like,
Yeah.
but they may not actually qualify as the toxic, right? Because there are some things that we were taught that were toxic or that is not good for the times that we have moved into. But we have to learn how to properly identify those things because even in the era my father grew up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, he was born in the 40s, right? So he's grew up in 50s, 60s, 70s. And so there's some things that they had to go through that maybe we don't have to go through at the same level today. But there are moments in my life where I have found myself in a specific pressure cooker, that felt like what he talked about. And that may not be our cultural experience today, but there are moments where I had to tap into that to survive a moment or an experience, and I've been under leadership in the military that for whatever reason, and I know the reason is because I believed in the scriptures, and I had an NCO who lifestyle didn't agree with it. So and I knew it. I was purposely singled out and treated as if I was different but yet, hey, Gaddy, we need you because we messed stuff up and we know you're the only one that knows how to fix it, kind of thing. But I had to learn how to survive it in that space, right? In that place of prejudice. And some of the things my father taught me may not have been good for everyday living, but it was good for that moment. So you got to learn how to cipher information, right? How to hold on to the principle behind what was being taught sometimes, because like you said, some of it is was taught from their trauma or taught from their experiences. But I'm not saying anybody here saying that you got to throw away everything you were taught. I know that's not what's being said, but I think we have to be careful that we don't do that.
I agree with that. I would say that there are a lot of things that will still serve us well today. I think this word, this ever elusive word in this time and space called respect, is something that needs to be brought back to the table. And it's not making, it's teaching, right? Teaching what respect is. And, teach it to such a degree that you understand how to express it. And because trust me, it's some restaurants you go to, man, and it's customer service seems to be an option these days. And I think a lot of that has absolutely nothing to do with the job. It's probably just home training, but that's just my opinion. But yeah. Any others before we move on?
I would say, how about we get over the fact that change is going to hurt and quit avoiding it, because it's going to hurt. Like Miss Verlene McCoy said, that we have to learn how to change even though we may not want to. Right now, I think it's a necessity, because the way we are portrayed in media in the world as a whole encompasses everybody, even though everybody isn't the same in our quote unquote culture. We got to be willing to change. It's going to suck. Like you said, I say this all the time. I say it all the time. Change it sucks a lot. It hurts a lot, but we got to go through it, man. We have to go through it if we want to be treated differently. We can't go about the same thing the same way and expect something different. I know all of us aren't crazy.
I think some of it may just be the word change, right? Sometimes we hear this word like, I ain't changed for nobody. This is who I am, right? So sometimes I think it can have like a negative scent
Or I'm
to the
set in
word
my
change.
ways.
Exactly. So I mean, I ain't trying to change, but I look at it more. Yeah, there are some things that we change, but there are also some things that we just evolve. We just evolve. We get better. You know what I mean? We learn more. It's not some things are we're changing, but some things is like the person I was at 20 or 28 is not the person I am at 48. Did I change or did I evolve into the person I am right now? And I think it's a combination of both, but I think that sometimes people are a lot more willing to accept things or the new version of something if they may see it as an evolution of themselves or them getting to a new point in life versus just changing. So, and I know that may be minor to some people, but for some people, words play a huge part in their life and they can really live off certain words. And I know I'm like that about certain things. So sometimes just changing a word from change to evolve can be huge, even when it comes to just your mindset, because the mindset is where things are going to take place before they start shifting anyway. You see how I wrote that in there, Coach?
I see what you did. I see what you did.
And we have a negative connotation towards the word change because we look at change as a negative.
Yeah.
And we attach any change as, oh man, instead of saying,
it's
man,
hard.
like it's time for you to grow. It's time for you to evolve. And that's why words do matter, because they have meaning. And if we attach a negative connotation to something, we gonna stick to it. Like, I don't want to change. Like, you gotta change. Why I gotta change? Instead of what about grow? Why don't you have to grow? Because it's the same thing. It's just how you look at it. Because psychologically, we gonna look at it, oh, change and mean that I got to do something I don't want to do. evolving is something you don't want to do. Growth is something you don't want to do. It's just like when you have those shoes when you growing up, your parents know I'm not buying these $300 pair of sneakers because you gonna sit up there and grow out of them in 2 months, and then you gonna want some more. So I'm gonna buy some lesser because you're gonna grow. Because if you still in them, your feet gonna be bunched up, and you're gonna have some problems. So change is necessary, but when you change the words that you use, and you can manipulate the mind to think on it a different way.
You're still talking about them bunched up feet. Hey, you know,
Yeah.
I do want to mention this because I like what Uncle Junior said there, and there's a lot of truth in that. He talked about evolution, and I think a lot of times the difference between change and evolution is one is intentional, one is not. Right? You will evolve regardless of who you are by doing absolutely nothing, because life will make you change. Only thing you gotta, if you don't believe me, do absolutely nothing different for the next 10 years of your life. I promise you, inflation will catch up with you. I promise you, something is going to change in your environment that's going to force you to move off of that spot. But if you're intentional about change, you're putting forth the effort to do something different for an expected outcome, then you will actually reap the harvest based upon that change that you're putting yourself through. It's not going to be easy, right? But what I would tell you, it is so well worth it once you realize that, man, I used to be here and now I'm here. So I want to add that in there because I think you're absolutely right, Uncle Junior, by bringing that to the table. Gad, you had something else you was about to add?
I wanted to ask a question because I want to make sure I heard my brother Chris right, because the way I heard it is it's going to bother me all podcasts.
You need to change.
Are you because he brought up two things. He brought up change and then the perspective of everyone else on us. So are you saying that we should change as a people because of the perception?
That is a really good question. I am saying that if you want to be treated differently than the perception, you need to change. That is what I am saying. You don't want to be treated like that. You don't want to be treated like how mainstream media sees you. Pull your pants up, tuck your shirt in. You know what I'm saying? Quit wearing hoodies when it's 90 degrees outside because they know you about to steal. You understand what I'm saying? Like little stuff like that. Like,
see, and so I feel you, but I'm not sure I'm going to change wearing my hoodie because of how you treat me. Like for me, so when I'm talking about change from my perspective, how I'm viewing it is I'm changing how I'm treating others because of how I perceive them or their community. I'm not going to say I'm going to change because of your perception of me unless I'm actively doing something negative, right? Because there are some perceptions that were pushed that became a narrative that was not originally us, that became us, that was pushed on us. And so there's a difference. So like we should evolve. And I do love that the conversation went there, because I don't want to feed this narrative that who we are, if it's looked at to the public eye as bad behavior, then we have to change who we are as a people and as a culture because of their perception.
I want to ask a question, but I want to keep moving forward too. I really do. because what I want to ask is like, so who should we change for them? What perceptions are good enough for us to change?
I think until you want to change, because I'm not. I like me and we like J's, we like the shoes, and we like the whatever. But I'm not wearing those skinny jeans and all this other stuff. But there's some like I got on a hoodie. I always wear hoodies. That's what we wear up north. We wear hoodies, and that's what it is. But you come and you look at I don't care what TV show it is, whenever they want a person to look like a thug,
he in a black hoodie,
a hoodie,
and a
baseball cap. And then it's like,
or a Pooh Shiesty mask.
That's what the definition is. So if I don't have on a tie and a shirt, so the perception for people watching is, oh, that's bad. So when people see it, it's bad. But do I change because they're pushing that narrative, or do I show people around me that I mean you no harm? I'm not trying to steal from you. It's like
So let me
we.
change the narrative. Let me change the narrative then. What if my perception of you has to do with your character? What if my perception of you has to do with your behavior out in public and I am a trusted member of your family or I'm a trusted member of your brotherhood? You see what I'm saying? Now, is that perception good enough for you to take stock in what it is I'm sharing with you?
I think if I value you and your opinion, then
Absolutely.
I got to look at it because I got to say, okay, how am I being perceived by people that care for me as well? Because if I'm out here just willy nilly doing anything that's destructive to not just me, but people that look like me, and it's like, whoa, I got to step back and look at this thing. That's why I hate when like Jason Whitlock and what's his name, they on TV arguing. Cat
Oh,
Williams
Jesus
arguing with
H.
everybody. It's like everybody arguing with everybody, and everybody just sitting back there eating popcorn. It's like, come on now, this is entertainment. Me, this is not life. Other people look at that, they're like, that's life. That's just how they are. Crabs in the barrel.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I like that you brought that relationship aspect because that definitely changes how I view your opinion of me. You know what I'm saying? If you on the outside looking in, your view just may be your view. Like Roland say, because you see this on TV. So because I don't have on tight jeans, I got on baggy jeans, I'm stealing. No,
Yeah.
But that relationship piece definitely changes how I view it.
Yeah. And I brought that to the conversation because there's a lot of times you hear people say, well, this is just who I am. I'm not changing for nobody, whatever the case may be. That's not a true statement. I promise you, you will change for the right person. Whether you're going to change for somebody who trusts, who loves you and actually is trying to tell you something for your own good, or you're going to change for them boys in blue. But you're going to change for somebody. I guarantee it. So great conversation. Listen, I appreciate you guys who have joined us today. Again, wherever you are, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, Instagram, on X, or wherever you are, go ahead and hit the like button. And by all means, share it with somebody that you know, love, and care about. Because again, this conversation is really just getting started and we're almost halfway through. So, the first key talking point I want to bring to the conversation is unconscious or implicit bias. Unconscious or implicit bias. And you know how I do. Words mean things, right? So, that being said, how would you define unconscious bias?
Is when I automatically see you, I think this, uh, and it's because of the overall narrative, right? All personal experiences, because some of us have gone through things so much with a specific group or with a gender, whatever the case may be. And so as soon as I either see a certain thing or as soon as I hear a certain word or if I hear a certain accent, like I know people that say as soon as I hear a girl pop her tongue, I already know she ghetto and I don't want to deal with her because she comes with problems. Well, you dealt with a lot of girls with problems that like to pop their tongue. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's an automatic response. I think that's based upon either a narrative that you have been taught or your personal experiences.
Yeah. When I lived in coming from the north to the south, my unconscious bias of people in the South because of what I saw on TV and how they talk with the Southern draw was that they were slow, that they weren't smart, they weren't educated. That's what I thought. And it was fed by relatives because they would say, don't talk like them country folk. Talking about my family in the country, don't do this like them country folk. So it was always pushed in me to not be like them because so it's like not be bad, be good, not bad. So automatically when I came, bad. You start talking, dumb. And then you get around people, you realize, hold up, that's not true. Like I'm ignorant for thinking it. But
That's a Yankees thing.
yeah,
Not
it
the New
was.
York, not the New York Yankees got it. Oh, Chris, what you got?
I kind of look at it as like the way you unconsciously like stereotype people, like kind of like what everybody was already saying, even what we were saying before, like people from Texas wear big belt buckles and talk with a southern drawl, and they wear cowboy hats. You know what I mean? People from Mississippi, you know, they do what they do. People from Michigan, you know, they say what up though, and they call soda pop. You know what I mean? Different things like that. And I do believe that sometimes these stereotypes do have, some of them do have some truth in them. You know, it's not necessarily a bad thing, you know, and I think that sometimes, you know, it can be bad, like in the scenario that Gaddy talked about earlier with the hoodies and stuff like that. I think that sometimes these unconscious bias can play out to where there are some negative things that end up happening behind these things. But I think sometimes, you know, in a sense, we all are somewhat unconsciously biased about certain things, and I think sometimes it just comes from a place of ignorance, not in a negative way, of ignorance meaning that you just don't know. You know, if all you've ever known about people from New York is that they wear New York hats and they wear hoodies in the summertime with jeans, shorts, and Tims, then whenever time you see somebody like that, you're probably going to associate them from being from New York, good, bad, or indifferent. But the reality of it is, when I was in high school in Virginia, that's the way that we dress too. Like if you go to Virginia, people wear hoodies in the summertime, jeans, shorts, and Tims. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a bad thing if it's played out, especially in a negative way. But I also think that sometimes it can be a good thing because it can be a relatable thing. If I'm New York, you know, if I'm from New York, I'm just saying based off the stereotype. If I'm from New York and I got a baseball a fitted 59 head on, you know what I mean? I got on a hoodie, some jean shorts, and some Tims, and I see Twommy, and he got the same thing on, and I'm like, "What's up, God?" Right? And then he, you know, but what I'm saying is that it can be a good thing too. Even some of the unconscious bias can play out in a good way as well. So, I just think it's just at the end of the day, it's just, you know, sometimes some unconscious stereotypes that we have about other people. Know what I mean?
um
Just saying, New York folk is easy to get on, man. Like, come on, man. They easy,
hey,
bro. They easy
and,
target.
Hey,
and you know
but you
what,
you didn't
I
say one
love,
lie though.
nah, I
You
mean,
didn't say one lie though. Like,
word to everything.
word up,
That's
B.
everything. I ain't heard that one in a minute.
Yeah, word to everything. um to me, an unconscious bias is you thinking highly of or thinking bad of something without even knowing you think highly of it or you think bad of it. It just is. You understand what I'm saying? That's why it's difficult to define. um I'm it, for gave a great example about people down in people on the East Coast wearing Tim's hoodies and jean shorts. My unconscious bias could be if I see a white kid with a trench coat walking into an elementary school, I'm leaving. You know what I'm saying? That's an unconscious bias. So it's just something that it's something that you have, and it's something that you have that you don't know you have until you actually dive in and figure out what it is. If that makes any sense.
It does. I like what you guys are saying because I love it. Do me a favor and bring up Adrian's comment first. She says unconscious bias is forming an opinion of someone without knowing them, assuming the common stereotype. And I'm glad she put in the word stereotype because we kind of confuse biases and stereotypes all the time. And the key about unconscious bias is bring up Miss McCoy comment next. The key with an unconscious bias is bring up Miss McCoy comment, please. The key with an unconscious bias is that it's a form of judgment. So you automatically render a judgment on a person based upon a common thing about them, right? So when you look at a particular group, and I don't necessarily need to name any particular group, you can say this group of people are lazy, right? Or this group of people, all they want is assistance or whatever. Or this group of people, all they don't take accountability for anything. Or this group of people, they don't take responsibility for anything, right? So now what you're doing is you're looking at a group, you're putting the group into the judgment that you've already formed about that particular group, and you don't know the individual. That's where it says. Now, Uncle Junior, I understand you say it may not be bad, but it's just like confident that, well, let me back up. I am going to, I believe otherwise. I say it that way. I believe that it is bad because it's a judgment. I automatically have decided the outcome of who you are before I even giving you an opportunity, right? And the sad part about it is coming from my subconscious, which means I don't even know that I'm doing it. It's just a part of my ingrained, right? So it's like I just do it naturally. Um, this another one, I just kind of bring the bias thing, like people who have confirmation bias. So confirmation bias, they want to prove a point and they only look for the information that feeds the point that they're trying to make. They'll reject everything else except for the information that supports the point that they're making. So any bias that we have means that we're only looking through it from one side. We're not looking at it from another side as well. So I like to start off with that because that is a great segue into this next question, right? What are microaggressions, and can you explain how they can manifest in everyday interactions?
This is on y'all because I have absolutely no idea what a microaggression is. I think it's a buzzword. So please define this for me.
I'm trying to think of a good example that may help, maybe better than an actual definition. I had two on the tip of my tongue, so give me a second and I'll come back to it.
You need an example?
Microaggression may be. Let me take a
I
stab
kind of
at it.
want to think of
It's
one
like
on my own before
Okay.
yeah.
I would say, what are microaggressions? To me, an example would be how if we see a Chinese person and we're in the math class, we automatically, oh, she got an A. She Chinese. They can, that math. Or if we're in the hospital and we see a bunch of people in lab coats, we gravitate towards the Indian person or whatever, think, oh, that's the doctor right there. If we see a Nigerian looking person, you automatically thinking that, it's like little things like, hey, it's no harm in it. It just is like that. It's like little prejudices that don't hurt nobody, but it's just how we just think.
I, when I think about microaggression, I think to me it's like a form of of passive aggression, right? But more, I think of it more conversationally, right? Because passive aggression can be indirect behavior, right? To prove a point, or as we like to say, being petty sometimes. But when I think of microaggression, reason why I say that because I think of it like I think Chris kind of actually used the word that I think of, buzzwords. So a lot of people, when dealing with the term microaggression, people use a lot of buzzwords to either shame people or guilt people into changing their opinion or into looking bad because of their opinion. So they use these little slights. You know, oh, so you're misogynist. Why? Because I want to pay the bills. So it's that's how I view it, pretty much in a short synopsis.
Do you see why I always say I don't care about being offensive? Because to speak runs the risk of being offensive. That's what it sounds like a microaggression is. Me saying something and you taking it the way that you think you're supposed to take it instead of taking it the way that I'm giving it to you. Like, I don't understand these new buzzwords that people are using to keep. This whole thing was about diversity. But buzzwords like this, there is no inclusion in that. If
It's an
anything,
attack
that's
on
keeping
diversity.
right. If anything, is keeping us further apart. You understand what I'm saying? I think I'm sorry. I said I was going to stop being angry this year, so I'm going to calm down. I am sorry. The
Hey,
floor
don't
is
worry.
yours, gentlemen.
Hey, we'll try again next week. Don't worry about it. Go ahead, Uncle. What you got?
I think it doesn't always have to be verbal. I work in education, so having low expectations for students based off of what they may look like, right? That's a huge
Mm.
microaggression that happens every day all across America. So I think that's, I was trying to get something I could get. So yeah, so I think that's something that it doesn't always have to be verbalized when people show microaggressions, you know. It's something like, hey, you know, even in school where teachers may call students illegals, you know what I mean, versus saying they're from this country or they're migrant workers, you know, they may say. So it's different things like that that I also associate with microaggression, and like I say, it doesn't always have to be verbal.
Like that.
I, I don't know if I don't know the guy's name. He's a comedian. He's one of them internet comedians. And then he goes in the grocery store. He got the Crocs on, and then he always stops somebody, and he does little microaggressions. He say, "Man, you know, you look at roaches. Would this be, you know, that's a microaggression? Going up to somebody, you look like you got roaches, and then you know, will this work to kill roaches?" Is Calvin? There you go. And those little things are slights at people. Like when I came in the military, they say, "Where you from?" And I told them. They say, "Oh, where your 9mm, where your Uzi at?" Like, trying, you know, just those things to pick at people.
But where's the lie?
It was at home, but no, let me stop.
See?
It's not the point.
Not the point.
But just because I was from there, I could have been from the suburbs, or I could have been a different mindset person. But then I wasn't. But yeah.
But you see, this is why I said earlier in the conversation that in order for us to change how we are treated by the outside, we have to change how we are treated on the inside. You understand what I'm saying? The community image has to change in order for us to be treated different by everybody else. It's that's why I said what I said in the beginning.
And even in that, I think it starts more, you know, personal exposure. Like not everyone has an individual personal experience with our culture, so all they have is, and I can't help, because here's the thing: crime is in every community. I can't help that the news only covers what happens in ours, right? So that plays a part. So I think sometimes the part that we can play in that is making sure that, you know, those of us who are, and I say this all the time, those of us who don't act a certain way, those of us who are professionals, those of us who do believe in education, you know, we need to stand up on a platform so that all people don't see is a negative side of us, you know, not playing into the stereotype. But I just wanted to add one more thing when I think about microaggression, and that's folk that like to change the meaning of an innocent word to change the narrative of a conversation or an image of people. Like when you use the term, coach, migrants, like the word immigrant has a definition, but we have changed the feeling behind the word immigrant. So now it's like, well, I'm a citizen. I'm a citizen. Don't say that. I got my this, whatever the case may be. And we've turned the word immigrant to a bad word when it actually has a definition. It means something, you know. And I think we do that with a lot of stuff. So having conversations become hard. That's when I jump right on Chris bandwagon. To speak nowadays is to run the possibility of being offensive just by saying a simple word.
I said migrant.
No. Unk did, my bad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I use the word illegal versus
okay, gotcha.
migrant worker. Yeah,
But see that there's I firmly believe that there is a difference between a microaggression and actually speaking the truth. There's a difference.
Yeah, those are not even remotely in the same category.
Exactly.
Right.
And that, I think that will be the start of it. Like like you said earlier, coach, words have meanings. They have meanings, man, and you can't just take a word and make it mean what you want it to mean. It means what it means. You understand what I'm saying? You may interpret it differently, but it is what it is. There's nothing. When Roland was talking about Detroit, I used to teach dance up there. I know what time it is up there. We could have all been accused of being microaggressors when we were talking about Tawame and his accent and his hoodie and his jean shorts and his Tims. But even he had to acknowledge, yeah, it's true. So I think that there is a difference, and we need to understand that there is a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Bring up King Coop's comment. This is the key, right? He said a statement, action, or incident regarded as an instance of indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination. That's the key. Unintentional discrimination, right? It has to be unintentional discrimination. Again, against members of marginalized groups such as racial or ethnic minorities. Now, here's the funny part about it. I got a real quick story, right? No joke. There I was. Um, I bought my second house ever. This was in Copper's Cove, right? My realtor, who will remain nameless, but she was of the Latino descent. And so when I came, now she was already engaged in conversation with my wife at the time, right? So when I came home from work, she was at the house. And so, she introduced my ex-wife introduced me to the realtor. And she said, "This is what I was telling you about." I was like, "Okay, cool." And so I went to shake her hand. She's like, "Hey, what's up?" And she went to dap me up. And I just stood there and looked at her. I didn't move. I just looked at her. And she's like, "No, he's not going to respond to that." Right? Because I'm like, what are you saying? What's up? This is business, right? Now, got it. I'm not saying that the Latino culture is an oppressor, but by that same token, that's an example. I think there were some other great examples that were given that went along with what Uncle Junior said. It's just like you guys, Chris, you from the north. When you start getting on, like, say for example, the public transit, right? And say for example there is a woman there of another ethnic culture, and soon as she see you, she clutch her purse real tight. That's an act of microaggression, because the subconscious mind is saying he might rob me, right? Just because you got on the train, or just because you got on the bus, or whatever that looks like. So we have to be consciously aware of those things when we do it, if we do it, right? And also be consciously aware when others do it to us. I think Nick D gave another great example. I've experienced microaggression in the professional world, being overlooked or bypassed because I don't look like the boss. It's an assumption that a black female, cannot be at the head.
No, it isn't. It is an assumption based off of the image that the women that preceded you gave them. It has
Well,
nothing to do with competence, at
well,
least in my opinion.
so
Sometimes,
if I may, there's no evidence to that. It's
yeah.
her environment. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, I'll
It,
grant
it,
you that.
right.
I'll
It's
grant
her
you that. But
environment.
there's
So there,
another. But there's always another way to look at things. And
sure.
that's what we're forgetting. There's always another way to look at things. It sucks that happens. Like, it really does. It sucks that a woman can't be in a power position and look as if she can hold that power position down. It sucks. However, that could come from images that happened before you took said position that give people that perception. Just like the hoodie thing, just like the Tim's thing, just like rolling with his gun thing. All of that happens before you showed up. You got to show them something different. That's why I said we have to change, starting with us, because we know this stuff. We're not stupid. Like, we know this stuff.
So the other
That's
That's
why
part,
my
I
rant.
talk
That's my
about.
rant.
so the other
That's why I
part,
talk about exposure. Oh, my bad.
no, you get. So the other part is, and I'm not saying that I know, but I'm sure that there's a backstory that goes to the statement, and that's why I say we can't say that, because that's her environment. When you start looking at the backstory, you start looking at the facts, right? The facts is this. The facts is that I am 100% qualified. All of my performance evaluations say that whatever their ranking system look like, but why did I get passed over for promotion with no explanation? You see what I'm saying? That's one of the gripes that we've had in the Army at a certain point, because once you get to decentralized promotion, your all of your NCOER say that you're among the best, 11111, right? But then by that same token, when it comes down to promotion, it's like, well, you didn't make it. Why not? No explanation, right? So I get that. I completely understand that. So no, thank you, Nick D. That's a great example. I think Adrian had an example, something similar to that as well. Um, no, the
So
next one.
cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
How? So what do you feel? It just off that definite that explanation you gave in the military, right?
Mhm.
What do you feel about the demographical breakdowns of, you know how, so EO every quarter, they come to S1 and they
The
get that
QNSR.
demographic breakdown of promotion, awards, and blah. Do you think that kind of pushes a narrative that I have to promote certain people over certain people at a point because too many of them got promoted this month or this quarter? And the same thing with the DA centralized, right? Like, hey, maybe we overwhelming with black artillery first arms or mass arms, whatever. We got to get some Oriental presence. Like, I'm just being funny. But I'm saying because those demographics go all the way up, right?
Right.
And
You
do you
can't
think
say
that kind
or.
of feeds to that idea?
So are you
So,
talking diversity hire quotas?
so what he's talking is a report that the Army has to do quarterly called the QNSR. And don't ask me what the acronym stand for. I can't remember because I had to do it. And what it does is it takes a comparison across every major event. So you look at promotions, you look at punishments, you look at awards, you look at all of those things, and you have to literally tally up the number of how many white males, how many white females, how many black males, how many black females, how many Hispanic, so forth and so on. And what that does is it gives Big Army a snapshot on their ability to look at everybody as being equal, not just based upon skin color. And so I think that's their attempt to right the ship. But then by that same token, is it a perfect system? Absolutely not. I think, especially when you start talking decentralized, because your packet goes forward, but they never get to know the person. And so the individual who are making decisions don't know really who you are by simply just looking at your picture and your records. And so it's an attempt, but it's not a perfect system. And I think that's their version of getting as close to being perfect as they possibly can without being perfect. That's just my take on it. Roland and Unc, if you guys got a different take on it, by all means, share.
Yeah, I get that. I've heard that, over the years when I was in the military, that the Army wanted to have a demographics that looked like, that was kind of spread out, right? So that's why, if you were, sometimes they said where, if you were a black female in certain jobs, then you was probably going to make E7. You know what I mean? So I've always heard these different things and speculations about promotions and different things like that. But whatever's going on behind closed doors, I was never privy to witness it or see it. So everything that I've gotten has always been through hearsay from someone else, from someone else, from someone else. So I did work for two sergeant majors who did sit on E7 and E8 boards and stuff like that. And so I do have some knowledge about it. But none of these things that we always talked about never came up in those conversations. But who knows?
Yeah.
This is my
That's
microaggression right here. Mine is being called homegirl or boo. This is my microaggression. I'm passionate when I speak, but I'm always looked at as angry, or I get put in a box that I ain't got no business in because of the way that I talk. This is my microaggression right here.
I'm not messing with you, man. I'm not messing with you.
So you're damn right.
And
I'm
intentional.
angry now. Deal with it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So another great example. I've never witnessed this happen in front of me, but I've seen movies where they would joke about this, trying to highlight it. Um, I can't remember the name of the movie. I think it's the one that Eddie Murphy did, where he was a diehard Muslim, and his daughter was about to marry a Jewish guy.
the last one he
Oh,
did on Netflix.
yeah, it's on
Oh,
Netflix right
coming
now.
to
Yeah.
America?
No, not Coming to America. I can't remember the name
No,
of
the
it. But
second
Yeah,
one,
they
right?
used
Now it just came out
the
within
guy
the last
Jonah
year.
Jonah Hill or whatever.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the Jewish guy naming it. He's a
Yeah,
comedian.
Lauren London.
Yeah, if you want to see an
Nia
example
Long.
of this, look at look at that movie, and what you will
Yeah.
see is the Jewish mother trying to relate to the black girl, the black daughter of Eddie Murphy, and you people, thank you.
You people.
She's trying to relate to her, and she is
You
using
people, yeah.
all of the slang in the wrong way. And so I like the fact that Adrian brought this to the table because I know this happens. I've just never witnessed it personally. So again, thank you for that. Listen, man, we got to keep.
You
You just got muted.
you muted, coach.
My bad. So the next key talking point is the rule of education, the role of education. I'm sorry. So the first question up under this one is: can you describe how education, either formal or through life experiences, there we go, through life experiences, can significantly shift created biases? I'm sorry, I left out the D. How can education, formal or informal, shift those biases?
I love the education piece because I think you should always be learning and always be experiencing something. And it's just like when people see my name that I put now on YouTube, and they say, "Oh, this yada yada," they gonna automatically, black people automatically go to something Muslim or something like that. Until you start to read and educate yourself, then you'll realize that it's saying that I am the son of righteousness. But uneducated people or ignorant of things, people will just look at it and say, "Oh, he's this and he's that," not willing to go that much further just to see what these words mean. So when we educate ourselves, what we do is open up our minds to learn and experience other things about ourselves first and then other people. Because until you start to learn about you, you really ain't learning about other people.
And
Man,
my
go
bad.
ahead.
No, I was about to respond to what Roland said, but it would have shifted a little bit. So I'm stick to the question. Um, I think it can be it can be good or bad shift, right? Because I think when you talk about informal, a lot of people do not like the idea of informal education, uh, for whatever their reason is, right? That's their own biases of the matter. Um, but I think with formal education, I think it adds to, sometimes, not always changes, or it still creates a shift, right? Because, in the 60s, you might have just been an educated, and yeah, you know what I mean? And so, doesn't mean that they think you're actually smart. There are people who still today believe that you got your education because of affirmative action. That's the only reason why you went to a good school, you know, or whatever the case may be. Um, but and that I've still seen that variant in the military, right? I've seen field grades that didn't like black officers because they thought they were uppity, or they thought they were better than the rest of them, whatever the case may be. But but education should be able to shift the paradigm a little bit to where it's like, hey, we are capable of learning on this level. Our skin color does not hold us back from being able to pass the class, or getting your certifications, or doing your job, or being doctor, but sometimes it doesn't shift it always in the right direction. You do have those who still look at it. Even in our own community, we look at people who had masters and doctorates in our community, and we'll say the same exact thing. Oh, they think they're too good, or they think they think they're smarter than everybody. Well, if you ain't got any type of education and they got a doctorate, they are a little smarter than somebody in the textbook arena, right? Or in that field, but so I think it can shift either way.
Chris said he don't know. Um, can you describe how education, either formal or through life experiences, can significantly shift created biases? Yes. So I was trying not to make this about me, but I couldn't figure out another way to do it. All right. So I'll just make it personal. I grew up with certain biases. You know what I mean? I believe certain things, I thought certain things were input into me. And as I got older, I have, I look at my life. I was married previously for 19 years. There's a lot of education that comes in that. There's a lot of life experiences that come with that. Being a father for 28 years, there's a lot of different things that come along with that. being in the military for 20 years. And then I also have the formal education with, different degrees and stuff like that. So I kind of got like both. And I would say that because I had the education and the different things like that and the life experience of the military and meeting so many different people and living overseas and deploying to Iraq and different things like that, and being around so many different people that I had these biases against, I saw people who, like I said, I had these biases against. They wasn't like that. They wasn't like what I was taught. Like if you're taught that these people are like this your whole entire life, but then when you get around these people and you don't have these experiences, it doesn't necessarily work, and I understand that some people have these experiences with other people, but that may not be true for everybody. So I would just say for me, having having my experience from my life, and again, this is me. Everybody have their own life, but I'm speaking from me. And it's for me is, like I said, being exposed to all these different people, all these different places and living, it forced me to think differently about what I was taught early in my life. And even early in the military, I was taught certain things about that wasn't necessarily true. And I created biases about certain things. But like I said, as I got older and I begot the education, the formal and through life experiences, that, it significantly easily shifted my mindset once I started to open my mind. Once I opened up to it, and that wasn't closed off to that singular mindset about something. That's my thoughts.
I like it. I really do. I think that when it comes down to it, education is all about learning something outside of what you currently know. Um, if you can get to the point of acquiring information and allowing that information to permeate where you get to the point where you process it and it turns into knowledge, then you can increase what you know. Again, this is why I brought up the notion of confirmation bias earlier, because a lot of times what we do is we shut our minds down to the things that we didn't know, and then we just confirm what we already know when they only talk about that one sliver of information. So we have to get to the point to reject nothing, accept everything, process everything, right? If we can do that, then what that does is it expands your thought. The whole concept of information, knowledge, so forth and so on. I'm gonna talk about that tomorrow morning at 10:30. So again, by all means, if you want to join us, jump on in. 10:30, we're going to talk about obtaining success through knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. We're on the wisdom piece now. So, but again, to this point, also I mentioned another person's perspective, which is our perception, right? So the information that we gather in, right? So if we can open our mind up to accept what somebody is sharing with us, even if we don't believe it, right? And get to the point of processing it and considering it, and see where we can identify any relevant facts to go along with what they say, then that can broaden our horizons as well. So again, being able to gather information from other people, being able to gather information from formal means of education, right? Not rejecting anything, right? Accepting it, processing it, determine the facts. And then as we see that it's more factual than it is not, then we accept it as relevant bits of data. And as we start comprising these relevant bits of data based upon fact, not feeling, right? Trust me, anybody know me, I'll be the first one to tell you, I understand how you feel, but where's the facts to support that, right? Because in this world, what I'm learning, and I think a lot of people agree with this, facts don't matter anymore because the world has transformed into what I tend to call a subjective observation, which means that you can formulate any opinion about what you observe and then just automatically sit it on top of it by saying, well, I feel like, and then next thing you know, well, you can't tell me that how I feel is wrong. So again, we got to get back to objectivity, being able to identify the facts and relay the facts in the thing to such a degree that we have a better understanding based upon the relevant facts, so that we can expand, broaden our horizon, expand our minds. And I think that is one of the best ways that formal means of education and informal means of education can help to reshape those biases that we currently have. Um, let's kind of And again, thank you guys for everybody who's sending comments. Again, I appreciate them, but we're running close on time, so that's why I'm pressing on. Please do not be upset. We love bringing comments to the chat, to the conversation, but these brothers is on it tonight. All right, let's jump down to cultural intelligence and adaptability. Right. So the last key point tonight is cultural intelligence and adaptability. And the question up under that is, how would you define the term cultural intelligence in our personal and professional life?
I think, and I don't know, I'm jumping on all these bullets on these grenades first, and sacrifice somebody else next time. Nah. Um, so I think it's two parts, right? I think there's an observation part of it, and then I think there's a self examination part of it, right? Because yeah, because understanding the culture of others, especially as a coworker or a supervisor, you have to understand that there are some nuances to how they interact, how they behave, or some uh some things that they may ask of you or of the company to assist them with because of their culture, right? So knowing the practices, Roland brought up, people see Sadiq, they're gonna think Islam, not knowing it's a Hebrew word, right? Um, but when you know, if you know that, all right, Islam, they behave like this. Islamic women don't do this, or won't do this, or won't interact with men in this way, then you understand there's a cultural bounds that you cannot, that is not fair to ask others to shift just to maintain or obtain employment, right? But then I think that even of ourselves, there are some cultural behaviors that we or you may have, or a group may have, that may not work in order to exist in a certain environment or to perform a certain job. Because and maybe this is more politically view for me, is I don't think it's always fair to tell the nature of a business, of a field, to always change. There's some things, yes, but to change because of I specifically, I don't do this, so I need y'all to just not do this at all, right? Um, or I need y'all to change this whole culture because I work here now. I think there's a part of me that needs to know, all right, if I get into this field, I'm gonna have to deal with these things. Uh, and like I say, certain things, and I'm not getting specific, you know. So we have to have our own cultural intelligence to know what environments we should put ourselves in, and on the flip side, know the understand the cultures of those that are around us, so we know how not to offend or how to assist.
Does that mean go?
Go ahead.
Um,
Go ahead.
so first of all, Coach, thank you for this word right here. I don't think I've ever seen these two words put together. So
Neither have I.
I am going to I thank you because it's challenging me, and I'm hoping that I can do it. So I'm looking forward to answering this question. So all right, so here's what this is just my personal opinion. Again, if you listen to this, if it's wrong, I apologize. But this is the first time I've heard these two words together in the sentence that I can recall. And I'm trying to take a stab at it. But luckily we got I feel like I think that if I don't hit it, then I think that Coach and Roland will be able to back me up. All right, so if I'm looking at the word cultural and I'm looking at the word intelligence, if I smash these two words together, I'm thinking that it's someone who has intelligence about their culture. Now, what I'm looking at is this. Roland started off by saying something in the beginning and talked about how I have wanted to be more and engulf myself into my wife's culture. My wife is Diné. My wife is Navajo, so she's Native American, and they have certain rules and rituals and things that they do for themselves. So I'm looking at it as if my wife is involved in her culture and she knows where she come from, and she may go along and do certain things that relate to her culture, then there's a certain level of intelligence that comes along with that. So, and what that means is that if there are type of people who, let's say, like I think Twame's talking about, like say when you're a certain religion and you pray a certain amount of time a day, well, that can relate and bleed over into your personal life as well as your professional life. So that's my stab at it. I just think that is somebody who's kind of engulfed in their culture. They understand it, they're aware of it, and they understand how it can not necessarily benefit them, but they just understand it. I don't know. That's my shot, and I shot it.
When you put the words together, it's just like you made in the military. It was diversity training. Every month you did some type of diversity training so that you wouldn't offend other people. So now you have a source of intelligence to go back to. So what you do, you learn about other people. So now I'm not being offensive when I'm not going to call them this because I know they don't like that. I'm not shaking hands with my left hand when I go overseas. I'm not doing certain things because I understand a little bit about the culture, and I'm not trying to, as Gaddy says, I'm not trying to be offensive.
Okay.
So I was wrong, and I appreciate that. But thank you.
You weren't wrong.
Honestly, you weren't. You
were on
weren't
the other
wrong.
side.
Right.
Yeah.
I was on the other side.
You was
Okay.
on the, you was on the side of cultural awareness.
To be cultural.
Hold on, real quick. From a just make sure I'm clear. From a personal standpoint, more as from looking outward at other people. Correct?
Yes, but I promise you, I'm gonna hit on it.
Okay,
Let me let Chris go ahead.
Square me away.
I'm a lowest common denominator dude. Cultural intelligence to me is being intelligent about culture. And we're talking about personal and professional. There are things you can do at your job because the culture there is different than the culture is that you have when you are at home. And it is understanding the difference and understanding how to behave in between the two. I can't bring my personal stuff to the job. I shouldn't bring my job into my personal life. That to me is cultural intelligence. There are things that I can do at work that I, you know what I'm saying, that I shouldn't be doing at home unless I'm getting paid for it. And there are things that I'm doing at home that I can't do at work.
I like it. I like it. I think I think when it comes down to this, there's a couple of things we need to understand. There's some gates that we need to understand within the space of cultural intelligence. Bring Michelle's comment up, please, because she hit the nail on the head. She says cultural intelligence goes beyond simply being aware of cultural differences. It encompasses the skills and attitudes needed to navigate and work in multicultural environments, right? So it's not just me being aware of my culture to where I become culturally dominant. It's me being aware of my culture while accepting others' culture and become curious about their culture to the point that we get to share the beauties of each other's culture. That's what it's like. It involves me understanding from a space of desiring to know more about who I am based upon my culture and what my ancestors did and so forth and so on, and how I embody that. But don't think so highly of myself to think that my culture is the dominant culture to I go to impose it on somebody else and rob them of their rights, right? Cultural knowledge, understanding cultural norms, values, beliefs, and practices of different groups. Absolutely. Once I understand minds, then I can pursue, like once I, say for example, let's say Roland's our Hebrew guy up here, right? He is now. And so because that's who I deem him to be, Mr. Ben Sadiq himself, so I become curious about Mr. Sadiq, not minimizing minds, but it's that I'm curious to learn more about where he come from, what they do for norms, like he said. That way, when I go to the Middle East, I don't shake with the wrong hand. I understand what an imam look like. I understand what a sheikh look like and things of that nature. I understand when I go to certain neighborhoods what common respect and courtesy look like. Again, it's not devaluing who I am. It's just respecting who they are. And if we can get a grasp of this concept to such a degree to where we recognize, like, oh, this just ain't nothing. No, no, it is. It is very important because this is one of the main reasons why we don't get it. Because what it means is that I have to do the research to educate myself, but I also have to remain humble in the midst of doing so. Therefore, now interacting, I become more inquisitive instead of more suggestive. Because when I become more suggestive, I'm telling you about me. This is how we do it. This is how my ancestors did it. Therefore, if I'm going to be in the space, this is what we're going to do. No. Why don't us ask the question, say, Roland, how do you guys do it? Right? What do you guys normally do? Then let's find a way to where we can inject both of our cultures. It is a very, to me, right? It is a very easy thing to do in the workplace because you signed a piece of paper that say you're going to represent the company, right? Not represent, people of my ethnicity. So if I signed a contract to say I'm going to represent the company, then the company have a set of core values that I must follow. Those core values drive my behavior. So if I'm adhering to this, then what I'm doing is I am intentionally treating everybody with dignity and respect. So before I open my mouth and spew something out, I'm already considering the most appropriate way to say that thing so that I treat everybody with dignity and respect. And oh yeah, if I have a person that is of a particular group and their common practice is XYZ, then I give them space for XYZ and ask them, how can I help when it comes down to XYZ? And they become more appreciative of that. So this is it's a really deep term that I've seen being pushed aside. So if we can actually harness this and embrace it, and not just embrace it, but teach it, then I think this answers the question. But again, I think Ms. McCoy said it earlier, you have to be willing to change. If you want to walk around and just rid the earth of everybody else except for people who look like you, good luck with that because I ain't going away. Okay. Did I answer your question, Unc?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, my pleasure, man. This is what we do. Listen, man, you guys are awesome. I've kept you a little longer than what we intended to. Listen, if you have not joined the Total Mindset Shift community, go over Total Mindset Shift. I put the link in the chat earlier, but go over to totalmindsetshift.com, join the platform, and then become a part of the community so that we can continue in conversations like this. Because I'm telling you right now, for those people who already joined, we're going to talk cultural intelligence moving forward because there's some more things I want to talk about. Listen, I know I didn't tell you guys, right? Thank you, ma'am. I know I didn't tell you guys, but this is the bittersweet moment. And so at this particular point in time, I'm just going to go from, hold on, we're going to start with Chris, then we're going to go to Gaddy, then we're going to go to Unc, and then we're going to go to Roland. And I got my fingers right this time. So with that being said, Chris, brother, you have the floor.
I guess my final thought would be this. Everybody has a different culture. Everybody has a different upbringing. Everybody has a different environment that they have been in, and you are not better than anybody. I think that if we understood that aspect of it and looked at people as people and not as the stereotypes that we see all over the internet and all over television, I think there would be more inclusivity because right then we would actually be able to get to know the person and not what the general narrative is of that person based off of what they look like or anything of that sort. So I guess that's my final thought.
I would say there is a fine line between understanding or knowing how to adapt when engulfed into another culture and not being authentic to who you are. Um, and I think that both are important to its limits because the only way that people are going to understand you and your culture is if you still hold the essence of who you are. And that comes first with knowing who you are. And so I think we need to spend time not afraid of trying to identify or searching so we can identify who we are. So we no longer start conversations like this talking about the lack of culture or lack of cultural awareness concerning ourselves. And so let's do that. Let's become the people we were designed to be. And then in our cultural awareness, let's not lose sight, or let's not dump who we are when in the midst of others. So, I believe wholeheartedly when the scripture says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So, the essence of who you are is important, even in engulfing yourself with others.
I hope I'm okay for this. If not, Coach can slap my hand later on. But I am a school counselor, and we have something we go back called competencies. And one of the things that we're required to do, I'm just going to read it straight from the horse's mouth. And it says, demonstrate basic knowledge and respect of differences in customs, communications, traditions, values, and other traits among students based off race, religion, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, gender identity, physical or intellectual ability, and other factors. Pretty much, if you kind of want to sum this up, is we are kind of sort of required to understand about everybody in our school, right? So whether we have Native Americans, we have blacks, whites, Hispanics, the list goes on and on and on. We are required by profession to know more about them. Why? Because we have to interact with them, interact with their families and stuff like that. So when it comes to diversity and stuff, we're all different. You know what I mean? But if we can work together, if we can go and put forth an effort to sometimes even place ourselves in those communities or have conversations with people who may not look like what may not look like us, we can create more harmony in the diversity amongst everybody. So that's my final thought.
Man, diversity is a must because of where we live. We live in America, and it's always lovely to learn about other people. But I say learn about who you are. And as people of color, melanated people in America, what we can't do is wait till February to think that we're going to learn about who we are by learning about the same, uh, I say 5 to 12 people that we've been learning about for the past 20 years. We need to branch out and learn achievements, learn individuals, learn accomplishments of what we bring to the table before we branch out to say, man, I'm gravitating towards everybody else and leaving mine behind. Because when you lift you up, you're not lifting you up, pushing someone else down. What you're doing is you're lifting up the standard for which that you're going to represent us. So when you represent us, you represent us well. And then going around other cultures, I respect everyone else's culture. I don't care what the culture is. I'm not going into it to offend it. I'm going to learn and to be as less offensive as I can so that when I'm around, I can have a better understanding. And that'll help with your relations as well.
Man, I greatly appreciate this conversation this evening, and I hope that everyone out there has as well. I'm just going to keep mine simple because I think we said a lot during the conversation. It is our responsibility to continue to be self reflecting and discovering some of the issues that we have and correcting those issues en route while learning who we are. That's our responsibility, everybody's responsibility. I cannot make someone else responsible for what I don't know. I can't put it in somebody else's lap to do the work for me. It doesn't work that way. Then, as I become more aware of who I am, now I am to the point to where I can become curious about who somebody else is. If I can become curious about who you are, it doesn't matter what you do, where you're from, whatever, male, female, different ethnic group, it doesn't really matter, different religions. Let's become curious, right? So that we can learn somebody else's culture and share ours with them as well. And then that way, when we get to the point where we have a society, when we have cultures, when we have environments, even communities to where we can share in each other's culture, then that's when we can come together, and that's when we can become one, and we can literally call ourselves a community. We can literally call ourselves brothers and sisters. I can be from the South, and because I interact with Roland, I can, call him up and say, hey, what up though? You know what I'm saying? Because that's his conversation, right? That's not my conversation. I can call Gaddy up and say, what's up, son? You know what I'm saying? That's his conversation. That's not my conversation. I don't know how to do in Ohio, but I want to learn, right? I don't know how to do in North Carolina, but I want to learn. And so I think that's really what it's all about. I say that jokingly, but I'm so serious. That's what we have to do. And it makes us better people for others. That's always the key. When I get to the point where I just want to be better so I can tower over somebody else, that's when it becomes a problem. So I want to leave you guys with that. Listen, thank you guys for everything that you've done. Thank you guys for all of your messages in the chats. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys on the panel. You guys are awesome. And for those of you who were not in the chat, you watching us, you're still awesome. Everybody that's listening, everybody on the sound of my voice right now, you have greatness in you. Only thing you have to do is let it come out. So that being said, enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a fantastic weekend, and let the best version of yourself be the blessed encounter for someone else.